Hey, welcome to your next best step with Brett Cockrell, the locker room for purpose-driven leaders. This is where we slow down, reflect, and we take our next best step through real stories, practical strategies, and rooted leadership wisdom. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, even the best leaders need a coach in their corner.
Hey, welcome to your next best step, the leader's locker room / the lab during the winter time, where leaders go to slow down, get real, and become rooted so that we can become great leaders, not only of others, but most importantly, of ourselves. If you're listening today, maybe you're driving, maybe it's you're doing a workout. I don't know what it is. Maybe you're trying to jam one more thing in. Let me just encourage you right now. This is something I'm trying to do myself is stop, take a deep breath, and just with me, inhale, hold, and then exhale. Breathing, stopping, all the craziness, the business. That's really what I hope that it's like when we come together. What I want for this podcast, what I want in the lab, in the locker room, wherever it is that we are broadcasting from. And so I'm BC. I'm your coach in your corner. And because here's what we do here is that we really do. We slow down. We take off the game face. We get honest about what's really happening on the playing field of our leadership right now. I mean, it's an amazing time of the year right now. This weekend, this is college football semifinals last night. Tonight, it is first round of NFL playoffs this weekend. 5 days of one and dones, right? And so my head, all my thinking is around coaching. And when we think about coaching, when we think about leading the play field that is ours, wherever it is, whatever context it is, man, we're seeing some great coaching. We're seeing some great turnarounds. But the theme that I hear in all of it is, man, the standards, the consistency of our behaviors, of the details of how we show up for each other, for practice as coaches. And so that's what I hope these episodes are with us. And today, I want to talk about something that I think every single leader that I get the opportunity to work with, including myself, this is something that we all struggle with, and that's the armor we wear. Not the physical kind, but the leadership armor we put on when we feel threatened, uh, uncertain, exposed, the scramble that goes on within us. This is the armor that we put on. So today we're going to look at where we armor up, why we do it, and what it would look like to dare to lead differently. So I want to introduce you to a framework that really stopped me in my tracks when I first read it, when I heard about it. You know, I'm a big Brené Brown fan of her work, of her podcast. Her new book, I can't recommend a better book for leaders starting out the new year than her new book, Strong Ground: The Lessons of Daring Leadership, the Tenacity of Paradox, which I love, and the Wisdom of the Human Spirit. And Brené Brown, on her work on vulnerability, courage, shame, has definitely shaped how I think about leadership, how I think about my own presence, and what I bring to my coaching practice. In Strong Ground, Brené lays out 11 contrasts between what she calls armored leadership, leading from self-protection, and daring leadership, leading with grounded confidence. Um, I've got this. If you get the book, it's great. I've got both. I've got the book, and I also listen to it on audio. If you get it on audio, you get a sheet PDF that's got all of her kind of frameworks. So I've got this right here in front of me. I'm going to be referencing it this during this episode. And Brené in Strong Ground, she lays out 11 contrasts between what she calls armored leadership, leading from self protection, and daring leadership, leading with grounded confidence. Uh, and let me be clear about something. This isn't about good leaders versus bad leaders. This is about leaders, all leaders. Every leader I know, including the ones I admired most, we every leader I know armors up sometimes. The question isn't if we armor up, but when, where, and with whom do we armor up? Because here's what I've learned: we don't armor up randomly, we armor up in specific relationships, specific situations, when specific fears get triggered. And the beautiful thing, once we can name where and when we armor up, we can make a different choice. We could take our next best step toward daring leadership. There are 11, but we're going to only highlight 6. I'll let you do the other work on the remainder of the 5, and you can find that in her book. So I'm going to walk through these 6 contrasts. Here's what I would encourage you: don't listen with judgment, but with curiosity. Um, that's a high value of mine is relentless curiosity. So lean in and let's get curious together. For each one, I'm going to ask you to notice, where does this show up in your leadership? Who are you with when this happens, and what are you protecting? So let's jump in. Contrast number 1: being a knower versus being a learner. This is from a leadership position, leadership context, right? So as a leader, contrast 1: being a knower, a leader who knows versus a leader who's always trying to learn. Armored leadership says this: being a knower and being right. Daring leadership, the contrast is being a learner and getting it right. That right there is worth the price of admission, right? When I first heard her talking about leadership, oh my gosh, I just thought about the dozens, if not hundreds of times in my leadership in the past where I was more concerned about being right than getting it right. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you said, I don't know, in a meeting, and you really meant it? Like you didn't know. This wasn't like false humility. You really knew, but no. Like, I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting question in and of itself. If you know everything in every situation, in every context, I don't know, like that that bothers me a little bit about your world, right? When did you last admit you needed to learn something? Armored leadership says, I have to have all the answers. If I don't know, then they'll think I'm incompetent. Now, this can come at different levels. This can come at mid management. This can come at a vice president to a president role, from a CEO to a board role. Like, we all have these insecurities, and we always feel like, hey, if I don't show up and have it 100% like buttoned up, then they're going to think I'm a fraud, and that's just not the case. Who so Armored leadership says this: I have to have all the answers. If I don't know, they'll think I'm incompetent. Daring leadership says, I don't have all the answers, and that's okay. Let's figure this out together. Ooh, that's some courageous, daring leadership there. Here's a reflection question I'll have with each one of these contrasts. Who do you feel you have to know it all around? Who do you feel you have to know it all around? Is it your board, your team, your boss? What are you afraid will happen if you admit you don't know? Think about a leader you respect. Have you ever seen them say, I don't know? And when they did, what happened? Contrast number two, tapping out of hard conversations. That's an armored leadership. Daring leadership, leaning into vulnerability and skilling up for hard conversations. This one hits home for me as well. In my years of pastoring and leading, I watched leaders, including myself, avoid conversations, and avoid is the word there, that needed to happen. We'd wait, hope it would resolve, or worse, we'd let it and sit there in resentment, either from my side or from their side. And that's where suspicion steps in versus trust. So armored leadership avoids hard conversations, like like detail, like to the heart of it. Daring leadership skills up for it. So here's a reflection question. What's the conversation you've been avoiding? What do you find it hardest to have difficult conversation? Who do you find it hardest to have difficult conversations with? And what's the cost of not having that conversation? That's a good one. What is the cost? If you continue to avoid this conversation, what's the end game? What's the final chapter going to be? Contrast number three, shame and blame versus empathy and accountability. Armored leadership, using shame and blame to manage ourselves and others. Daring leadership, leading ourselves and others from a place of empathy, accountability, and learning. Here's what shame sounds like in leadership. What were you thinking? How could how could you let this happen? See, I can play that role because I've done it. This is simply unacceptable. Like, what in the world? Here's what accountability with empathy sounds like. I wish I had this. Man, this is just so convicting. So let's just stop and breathe and laugh. Like, this is reality. Here's what it sounds like with empathy, daring, courageous leadership. Help me understand what happened. What did you learn? What support do you need? What support do you need? That's a different way to come at it. So here's a reflection question. When you're stressed, do you lead with blame or curiosity? Think about the last mistake someone on your team made. What was your first response? Here's another question. This goes way back. This is a rooted question. Where did you learn to manage with shame? Where did you learn to lead with shame? Most of us learned it somewhere. Contrast number four, scarcity culture versus enough culture. Armored leadership says this, fostering a scarcity driven culture. Basically says this, there is never enough, fill in the blank. Daring leadership, committing to and modeling we are enough and we have enough. There's never enough, fill in the blank, time, money, people, recognition, safety, resources, whatever that is. Scarcity breeds competition, hoarding, mistrust. Enough breeds collaboration, generosity, and you guessed it, trust. Trust. EDOT. Everything depends on trust. Here's a reflection question for this. What does your team or organization believe there's enough of? Or what does your team or organization believe there's never enough of? There's just never enough time. There's just never enough resources. There's just never enough money. There's just never enough volunteers. How does that scarcity show up in your leadership decisions? What would it look like to lead from enough? What if we flip the script? We would like more, but we have enough now. We have enough money. We have enough time. We have enough volunteers. We have enough. And if we manage that well, then we're going to hope that there'll be more on the other side of enough. That's very different. Contrast number 5, professing values versus practicing values. This hits home this week. Another thought leader, author, Christian leader um, announces that there's been a moral failure in his life, and certainly we give grace to, we all are capable of doing just about anything, but what keeps us from doing our worst and being our worst and actually living out a life that doesn't have these huge regrets and mindfalls and devastation? And I think it's the difference between professing values and practicing values. I really do. I think it's easy to have values, it's really hard to live them out. Armored leadership, professing values, daring leadership, practicing values. Um, this one's really personal for me. My core, like scripture, like my coaching philosophy comes from Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not in your own understanding. All your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. He will make your path straight. That comes from Solomon, the smartest dude who's ever walked the earth, and I've taken that. That's part of my, you know, my coaching, and it's part of who I am. And it's trust. It's these, like, trusting in something other than just yourself. Like, hey, I can trust in the Lord that he's going to help direct my paths. I don't have to lean in. I don't have to understand it all. I don't have to know it all. I can lean into him. And in these values, the professing these values and practicing is a really a part of that. It's easy to have values on the wall but never get down the hall. And so that's why when I'm working with leaders, I'm like, hey, what's your values, and then how do you manifest those? So our why, our what, and our how. It's part of what I work with all leaders. Like, what's your why, what's your what, what's your how? If you have a why, that's great, you need a why. But if you don't have a what attached to the why, then the why is never going to do anything. And if you don't have the how attached to the what, then it just looks good on the wall. And so this is so important. Reflection questions. What are your stated values? What are your personal values? I'm always talking about, like, to leaders, like, what's your top 3? Now, I don't want to hear your business. I don't want to hear your company's values. I want to know what your values are. Where you show up in front of every face and in every place you walk into. These are the 3 things I'm just going to always make sure. Of course, we don't bat 1,000, but you're going to walk sure. Like, I'm intentional about making sure that I live by these. And so, what are your stated values? When was the last time practicing one of your values cost you something? And, you know, trust is everything. And so, I don't want to be a transactional leader. I don't want to be a transactional person. I want to be a relational person. So sometimes I make decisions based upon, like, who I am, my values, right? And so it tells me, yeah, this may be, I might be able to step in and make a little money on this, but it goes against my values. And so I'm not going to chase that. Well, I don't know what it is for you. When was the last time practicing one of your values cost you something? Where's the gap between what you profess and what you practice? If your kids, if you said, "Hey kids, these are my three values," would they be surprised? Would your would your better half be surprised? Like, what? That's your value? Oh boy. Right. And here's the sixth one. Here's the last one we're going to talk about today. We're going to wrap it up. Fitting in culture. Fitting in culture versus belonging culture. Armored leadership says this: driving a fitting in. You got to be like us culture. Daring leadership, cultivating a belonging culture. Fitting in says be like us to be accepted here. Belonging says be yourself. We need what you bring. Back when we launched, I um, had a team, had an amazing launch team, and we launched a church in the city of Buffalo, in a particular neighborhood that I was not familiar with. And it was very diverse. It was a community that was very under resourced in everything. And I had to learn very quickly. I'm like, hey, I can't, we can't create a church. We can't create a community of faith that expects people to be something different than the people who live in this neighborhood. So we paid really close attention to walkers and riders, people who were walking into our church, right? Community, and people who were riding buses. Those were community. And the third was drivers, those who had transportation, they could drive there. We started with the walkers. Let's create an environment and experience in this space for this church so that those who live here feel most comfortable here. That's what the difference between being armored up, driving a fitting in culture versus a belonging culture. So here's a reflection question: does your team feel like they can be themselves, or do they need to perform a version of themselves? Who on your team might be fitting in rather than belonging? What would change if everyone could show up fully? Wow. Those are six. The other 11 is they're fantastic, like so good. I encourage you to get the list yourself and walk through them. So let's wrap it all together, bring it home. Every single time we choose armored leadership over daring leadership, we're trading trust for self-protection. And I get it. Sometimes we need protection. Sometimes the armor feels necessary. But here's what I want you to hear: EDOT. Everything depends on trust. Trust is the soil from which everything good grows. And trust cannot grow in the presence of armor. Trust requires vulnerability. Trust requires daring. When you choose to be a learner instead of a knower, guess what? You're building trust. You're watering the soil of trust. When you lean into hard conversations instead of tapping out, you're watering the soil of trust. When you lead with empathy and accountability instead of shame and blame, you are watering the soil of trust. Every single shift from armored to daring leadership is a deposit in the trust account. And the beautiful thing, you don't have to shift all 11 or six at once. You can just start with one. Just you need to just take your next best step and start with one. What is the most obvious? So here's what I challenge you to do. At the end of our coaching session, there's always a call to action. What is it that we want to do over the next couple of weeks? Pick one. Of those 6 or 11 contrasts, which one resonated most with you? Which one made you squirm a little? Start there. Get specific. Don't say, I need to be more vulnerable. Say, I need to stop acting like I have all the answers in leadership meetings with my team. Identify the relationship. Who do you need to dare differently with? Where are you armoring up? Who is it that you're armoring up against? And then number 4, take one step this week. Just one. Small steps build momentum. Remember, this isn't about perfection. This is about progress. This is about becoming rooted in who you really are so you can lead from a place of authenticity and trust. Take another deep breath. You're doing hard work. The leadership is hard work. Showing up to examine where you armor up, that takes courage. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for slowing down, getting real, choosing to become a rooted leader, not a leader that's chasing, not just concerned about outcomes, but you're concerned about being a leader. John Maxwell says this all the time. We need to be really good at what we do, but we need to be great at who we are. And that's what this is all about, your next best step. Hey, if this episode resonated with you, share it with somebody, subscribe. Would love to get feedback, and would love to be able to continue to help in any way that we can. So take your next best step, choosing daring over armor, choose trust over self-protection, and I'll see you next week in the lab.